Welcome to Gotta Go. This is Will Sanchez. My very special guest tonight is Elena Makovskaya. She is a member of the Cortlandt Track Club and recently named the Ultra Runner of the Year. I first heard about Elena from the Fritarian Dennis Mikhailov, who was running a 100-mile race.
My friend Elena, she joined me and she was my pacer. It's 25 miles. And she really helped me to protect that lead.
Not only did Dennis finish first, but he set the course record that day. Please welcome Elena to the show.
Thank you, Will.
Elena, let's start our show, as I do with all my shows. Tell us a little bit about your family. First, where were you born, and something about your childhood?
I was born in a country that was named at the time Soviet Union, USSR. So that's what stands on my birth certificate. Right now, it's a different country. It's the Belarus, because USSR broke down, as you know, into 15 and more different separate countries. So whenever people ask me where I was born, I usually say Belarus. My parents, they were very, very athletic themselves. My dad ran track in high school, in college, and he was pretty good with that. He ran track with hurdles. That's what he was specializing in. Mm-hmm. My mom was pretty good at running and cross-country skiing. They both have a ton of awards from all kinds of athletic competitions. So when I was born, everybody automatically assumed that I was going to be the next athletic star. And they tried to put me into all kinds of different sports when I was growing up. I was in gymnastics. I was pretty good at that until they realized I was going to be pretty tall, and tall people are not very welcome in gymnastics. Then I did tennis, then I did track and field, but truly speaking, I hated all that. I did not like any athletic activity. In high school or in middle school, whenever we had the PT classes, I was always trying to come up with excuses why not to go and not to do it. Whenever they made us run around the school or around track, I would always go away and hide somewhere and then come back by the end of the class. I just liked any kind of science. I liked math, physics, programming. I liked all of that.
But Belarus, they were in the news recently because of the Olympics. They did extremely well.
Extremely well, yes.
I think they got 5 gold medals?
They had 5 gold medals and 1 bronze. And the previous record was from Vancouver Games, when they had 1 of each.
My goodness, I would imagine a relatively small country.
It's 10 million people, so considering we finished in top 10 out of all countries that participated in those games, that's huge.
You mentioned your childhood, you weren't athletic, but you sent me this wonderful picture of you. I don't know, you must have been 4 or 5.
I do remember they were always taking me to these athletic events. When 2 of them were competing, there was always something going on for the kids, like a kids race or something. So I remember they were always taking me there, but I don't personally remember that race or any that I participated in anything there. The original is in my office.
Okay, well, obviously it means something to you.
Yes, it does. That's how it all started.
Well, tell us about coming to the States. How did you decide that?
That was also an interesting topic, because on my second year of college in Belarus, I learned that there are some people that go to the United States for the summer as a work and travel program. It's a program sponsored by the United States government. It's not just in Belarus. They invite all students from all over the world, but a lot of Belarus students participated in that program. So you come here for the summer and you work somewhere as a summer job, like American students do, I'm sure. And I worked as a ride operator in Point Pleasant Beach on Boardwalk in New Jersey. So I was pressing the button and make the thing go around and watch all the kids and the parents. That was my job for the entire summer. So when I went back, I remember as my plane landed in Belarus, I realized something clicked in my mind, and I realized that I wanted to stay in the United States. But I was only 19 and I wasn't ready exactly. I missed my parents, even though it was only 3 months, but I missed them really, really badly. 2 days later, I was in that office again that sends the students back and forth. I was there saying that I want to go back in 2000 again. Okay. So when the time came, I got visa again for the same program. So a few months later, when the time came and I was about to leave, I told my parents that I was going to stay this time, that it was going to be a long time before we see each other again. I remember my mom asked, how long do you think? I said, I really don't know, because I didn't at the time. I didn't know how long it would take. And I basically left the Belarus University. I didn't graduate. I was only 3 years into the 5-year program.
Oh, okay.
So I basically excluded myself,
Okay.
saying that I wasn't coming back.
Okay.
Took all my grades with me, got them translated into English, because I knew I was going to need that too. Took some references and left. I worked many different jobs. I worked about 70, 90 hours a week. My biggest job was probably a bagel store. I worked there maybe about 50 hours. Then on top of it, I worked in the sub shop making those big sandwiches at night. Then I also had a job as a hostess in a restaurant.
My goodness.
And I
you're
also was a
very,
babysitter for a little bit.
Like a babysitter.
Yes, that did not go so well. So those 2 years, I spent a lot of time working and just saving up for college.
Did you keep working or?
Yes. The 2 years that I was in school, in fact, I was taken, since I was paying for it myself as a full-time tuition, and you know, when it's full-time, it doesn't matter whether it's 12 credits or 18 or sometimes even 21. So to get the most out of my money, I was taking 21 credits per semester.
Oh my goodness.
And working at the same time, about 70 hours a week.
When did you sleep?
It's hard to say. There were a few times literally when I was driving back from school and I had to pull over because I was so tired.
Oh my goodness.
And it was not even safe sometimes.
And I guess anything athletic was furthest from your mind.
It was as far as you can possibly imagine. Yes, those 2 years of my life were the hardest years, and right now looking back, I don't know if I could do this again.
Very, very few people can do what you just did there. I think that's more amazing than some of the races that you did later.
Now that I'm thinking back, I'm thinking, why do I like this long distance? The longer, the better, the more suffering involved, the better it is, because it started back then. And that's when I started training for the suffering, when that comes in the later stages of an ultra. Yes, it was definitely worth it. And I was also very determined to graduate with a 4.0 GPA, because I knew not having any experience or internships, that would be the only thing that would differentiate me from thousands of other applicants for any other job. So I think that helped a lot, yeah.
You graduated 4.0?
Yes.
That's straight A's.
Straight A's.
Wow. Your parents must have been thrilled for you. I mean, they must have been scared all these hours, but they probably didn't know.
They didn't know half of it, believe me. And back then we didn't have Skype, so the only way for them to know what was going on with me is whenever I decided to send them an email.
But at some point you got into running because you are now ultra marathoner of the year for 2013. So what was the first inclination that you wanted to get into running?
I remember sitting there, I'm like, oh, people run marathons? That must be cool. New York City, I'm right here. That sounds like a cool idea. So I went home and I looked online and I saw that you have to apply for it. So I applied. And of course, I didn't get in from the first try because it's a lottery. So next year I applied again. I paid another $5 or $7. Again, I didn't get in. I wasn't running back then. Don't think that I'm running. I was running.
You just want to get in.
I just thought it was a cool idea. On the third year, I applied again. And then all of a sudden, I received an email in June 2009 that I'm accepted into New York City Marathon. It was such a shock. I don't think I even knew how long marathon was. When I turned around and told my coworkers, they looked at me very, very curious because I didn't look like a runner. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am right now. Nobody ever heard anything about running from me before, and all of a sudden, I'm in the marathon. That same day, when I announced it to everybody, I went back to my computer, I went to the same website, I found the schedule for beginners. I remember, according to that schedule, I was already 3 days behind. So I came home that day and I ran 2 miles.
So how did that go for you?
It went extremely well, because I followed that plan that I found. It was probably the most important thing for me to run whatever miles the plan said. That's what I ran, either before work or after work. And my parents visited me that summer, I remember. And I remember when I told my dad I was going to run a marathon, and he thinks he knows a lot about athletics since he was into running in high school and college. And I remember he told me that he read in some book, in order to run a marathon, you have to train for 10 years. I have no idea where he got that from. They came to visit me that summer as I was in the middle of training. First of all, they didn't recognize me in the airport because I was already probably 20 pounds lighter by then. And that was the shock number one. Then I took them to one of those training runs, New York Road Runners, when they have pace teams and people go around with particular pace. I remember I was supposed to run, I think 16 miles that day, but I went through the whole thing and actually got lost on the last loop that was supposed to be shorter, so I ended up with 21 miles. And when my parents saw that, they finally agreed that I can actually run a marathon.
They finally realized those athletic genes were kicking in when you're 20s.
Something was kicking in, obviously, yes. And then they also came to the second long training run, which I did a month later. They were still here. And my dad was so inspired, he ran one of the loops. And he said that was the longest run of his life because he never ran longer than a 10K.
The big day is here. I guess your parents by that time were back in Minsk when you ran the New York City Marathon?
Yes, they were back home, yes. But they were closely watching me online, of course.
Sure they were. So you got to the starting line uninjured, you were feeling good?
Uninjured, I was feeling perfect.
And you said you lost 20 pounds at one point. Did you lose another 20? Or?
I lost 40 pounds that summer. It just melted off.
Melted off. You changed your diet, obviously.
Yes, I actually changed the diet a little before that even, because at one point of my life, I went for a regular checkup, and my blood test came back with a high cholesterol. And I thought to myself, I'm only in my 20s. I can't have this.
Right.
So I had to drastically change my diet, even before I started running.
Okay. The running, of course, encouraged you.
Oh, of course. When you run, your body just changes and it doesn't accept any bad stuff.
You did a lot of right things here.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally, a lot of people's first marathon is not their best. Well, it's not their most memorable, but it sounds like you had a memorable one.
I had a memorable one, and it was one of my best marathons, too.
Really? Do you remember your time?
3:49.
Oh, this is excellent.
I remember I was suffering a lot by the end, but I also knew that I was about to finish.
Oh, okay, so obviously you were just thrilled with that.
Yes.
Well, you must have enjoyed it because you did more races after that.
Yes. And another week later, I decided to sign up for my next marathon, and I figured the first one was on the East Coast, so the next one had to be on the West Coast, and I signed up for San Francisco Marathon.
Oh, that's a tough one with the hills.
Yeah, with the hills, yeah.
And how did that go for you?
That went also well, but it could have gone better because I wasn't exactly trained for the hills at the time, and I decided to run fast in the beginning, which is not a good idea ever. But it was one of the most memorable too, because not only my parents were there, uncle, aunt, and 3 cousins, and they all came out. My entire family was there.
Oh, wonderful. Well, do we want to jump to the Van Cortlandt? Was there something that happened in between that's interesting?
Actually, one of the reasons why I joined Van Cortlandt, because it seemed like that's the New York club that has most ultra runners. Because a lot of other clubs, they specialize in shorter races. They do New York Road Runners races for the points and for whatever other reasons.
Right.
A couple ultras that I've gone to, I always used to see Van Cortlandt people, and they were always together. They were always fun. They always supported each other, paced each other, and I became friends with a couple of those people, and that's how I decided to join the club, because might as well.
Okay. Do you remember your first ultra then?
Absolutely, yes. I will always remember it because I have a broken finger to remind me of that.
Oh my goodness. Tell us about that.
It was the Bear Mountain 50K.
Okay.
My friend Jen, who played a huge part in my running, she took me on all her training runs. She told me about ultra. She was the first person to pronounce the World Ultra Marathon that I had to find out what that was. So Jen told me about this race, Bear Mountain. And she noticed that I like the races where they give out a lot of stuff, like shirts, bottles, socks, you know, the bling, all the goodies. At the time, I didn't have that many yet. And she said, Bear Mountain, North Face, they give out a lot of stuff. I bought a map online and I took a trip there. just to figure out what the trails looked like. And did a little loop on the map, and it was 4 miles, and it wasn't that bad. So I decided, yeah, I can probably do a marathon there. So I signed up for a marathon, but then closer to the race date, I figured, well, why not do a 50K? It's only 5 miles longer.
Mm-hmm. You said you would never forget it because you broke your finger? Or you
Yes, it was broken and
How did that
still
happen?
not quite straight. It happened probably in mile 9, mile 10. I didn't have enough experience on trails back then, and especially in Bear Mountain kind of trails, which are very, very technical. And I was feeling very good in the beginning. I hit the runner's high, and I decided to go a little faster. And I think it rained the night before, so the rocks were slippery. So I slipped on one of the rocks going downhill, and I fell. And this is what happened.
Mile 9, most people would, start crying and say, medic, and stop. But you went on and continued?
Well, I knew it was broken because of the way it looked. But at the same time, first of all, it wasn't hurting as much for some reason. I don't know. It was hurting much, much later, like that night.
The adrenaline was probably kicking in.
Adrenaline was there, and it's not the first time I break bones, and the first thing that hits me, it doesn't hurt as much as I would think. So, and then I figured, I'm not running with my finger. I didn't break any bones in my legs, so I might as well continue. But I had to continue very slowly because I didn't want to fall on that finger again. There were 8 stations.
And they fixed it up for you?
No, I didn't even show it to anybody until I finished. After I finished, they gave me a bag of ice and told me to go to emergency room, which I did.
That's amazing. But that's what it takes, that kind of fortitude and mental toughness. Okay, so now you're a fledgling member of the Van Cortlandt Track Club.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that?
It was in spring of 2012.
You got this award for 2013.
For 2013, I just got it.
All right, so you must have ratcheted up your running at some point, because what happened after you joined the Van Cortlandt Track Club?
At some point, I was just, in the beginning of 2012, I was going so crazy with this running thing. I was literally racing and running every single possible thing that was on the calendar. There was a period of 3 months when I raced every weekend, and those races were at least a marathon and longer. So there were 50Ks, 50-milers involved, and it was every weekend for 3 months. That's when I joined Van Cortlandt. But then, of course, that does not go well usually when you race that much, so I ended up injured, and I had to skip the entire summer of 2012.
Okay, to recover.
To recover from the overuse injuries.
Okay.
Yes, that's when I started, actually, that's when I reached out to a running coach, and I started working with the coach because I realized I needed some help in this area, that just running around with no purpose was not doing me any good. It was a lot of fun, but then it's not fun when you have to skip 2.5 months.
Okay. So did you join a coach at Van Cortlandt, or did you find a specialist?
No, I found a specialist. He's not part of Van Cortlandt, but he's very good, and he's helped me a lot, and he got me on track to chase some of my goals.
Okay. What's his name, by the way?
Howard Nippert. He's from Virginia, and has a website, howardnippert.com. He's pretty well known in the ultra world.
Okay.
And he's got a lot of experience, coaching experience.
So what was the first one that he helped you with?
He helped me to get back on track after all those injuries. And then we trained for Philly Marathon, which I ran pretty well. But my main goal was to run Boston Marathon with a good time. Because my first Boston I had to skip due to stress fracture. My second Boston, halfway into it, I had a plantar fasciitis, and I had to slow down to the point where I could hardly walk. So for the third Boston, I really wanted to have a good experience. Mm-hmm. And this is what my main goal was, goal number 1, and he helped me a lot with that, and I actually did have a pretty good race that year. Except for when the bombs went off later, that was that year.
Oh, wait a minute, that was the year?
Yeah, that was that year.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wow, that is
so that was
very special one.
Yeah, that was a very special one in many different ways.
Yeah.
It became even more special, so after what happened there.
Okay.
But that was our first goal number. I separated 3 months of training and said, let's do this just for Boston. No other races involved, and I want to get there uninjured and run a good race.
You won this award from the Van Cortlandt Track Club.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a particular set of series of races that you're noted for because of this award?
I did a bunch of ultras in 2013, and I did my first 100. That was my next goal that I wanted to get through, because I've had other hundreds that I kept putting away and not getting to the start line because I was always injured. So I really wanted to do my first 100, and that was Vermont 100. So I did that in July. And I did a few other ultras. I ran my best 50 miles, time too, PR there as well. That was kind of a big deal. And I think all those results went into that award. Because I remember at the end of the year, the coach was asking for everybody's results, and I sent him mine, and he replied saying, "Oh, you have quite a variety from a 5K to 100 miles."
Oh, okay, variety counts. Oh.
Variety, yeah.
Now, tell us the story. When they gave out this award, you weren't there. You were doing what?
Sleeping.
Sleeping.
I was sleeping, recovering from a 31-mile run that I did that morning.
That was a training run.
That was a training run, yeah. That was a pretty
right.
important training run, and I knew I wasn't gonna make it to the awards dinner because I passed out at 7 p.m. that night.
Oh, so you were asleep when they announced the winner.
They announced the winner, and in fact, the coach who announced the winner, he said, "I bet you she was sleeping."
Oh.
And that's exactly what I was doing.
Is there anything special you want to say to your comrades, to your family, anything at all you want to say to them?
I want to say to Cortlandt people, I want to say thank you very much for the award. I really appreciate it. It was really unexpected. And when I woke up that next morning, I was beyond happy. It's the best award I could possibly imagine. And I promise next year I will schedule my running around the awards dinner so that I can attend in person and see everybody there without the, with the normal clothes and not the running clothes, because people look very different at that awards dinner.
I'm sure they dressed up.
Yeah, they dress up. It's a very big deal.
Oh,
so I promise to do this next year.
Beautiful. Well, maybe you get a chance to pass the torch to the next ultra runner.
Yes, exactly, and that's what I would like to do too.
All right, but recently we have this other award here that you did, what's it called, the Jackpot 100?
Jackpot Ultra Running Festival, yes, 100-mile race.
Okay, and that was your second 100, I guess.
That was the second 100, exactly.
After Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what, a few weeks ago? How long ago was this?
Less than 10 days ago.
10 days. Okay, you already won this award. Sounds like you're on to more adventures here.
Well, I found out about this race when I think on Facebook somebody posted that the race was going to give out belt buckles in the form of a big casino chip.
And this is it?
And no, this is the award for the second place. The casino chip actually I have at home.
Oh, okay.
And that attracted my attention right away. And the bling, yeah, again. And then I figured it's Vegas, it's February, it's nice time to get away, and that's how I chose this race basically. And it's a nice course, so you can run a fast time there. It's a 2-mile loop, so you always have access to your own stuff, to aid station food. You're never hungry. And it's very easy logistically, and it's Vegas. Everything is always good in Vegas. What can go wrong?
You didn't need a crew.
No. Actually, in this race, no crew was needed. Yeah.
Excellent. And how did you do?
I did better than I could ever even imagine. Again, I was so happy. I never knew I could do this. I didn't know I could run the entire 100 miles, so my question was, how far can I run before I need to walk? And I ran through the whole thing. I ran all the way to the finish. And I ended up with 17 and a half hours.
The biggest thing was not to lose track of the loops, because you had to do like 42
loops, yes. Well, there was some technology helping people not to lose track of the loops. There was a big monitor that was counting the loops for you and showing the loops, and showing the mileage.
I guess it could have gotten boring after 30 loops.
That's what everybody says. You could be bored, you could be dizzy. My mom said that I'd be dizzy, but I was so much on a mission to see how far I can run, and I was always close to the first woman, and I was never bored in this race. Plus, you're running around so many people. You're constantly around people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you're all encouraging each other.
Encouraging each other. I saw the first woman twice per loop every time. We encouraged each other.
All right,
so
good.
I was never bored.
That's the spirit of the long-distance runners, encouraging each other,
yes,
the camaraderie.
Yes.
Like you help your friend Dennis and all these other people here. But that thing with Dennis was very special.
Yes, Dennis is a very special runner.
Wow. Well, listen, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to conclude. What is your Do you have any special mission or special goals for the future?
Yes, in fact, that 100 was kind of like a test to see how I can do in a 24-hour race, which I have in September. That's the next thing we're going to train for with my coach. And in this 24-hour race, I would like to run at least 120 miles, possibly up to 130. And that goal will get me into the World Championship in 2015 and possibly the Belarus national record, possibly. They haven't confirmed yet, but I would like them to confirm one day.
The record for women or for anybody?
For women, yes,
Okay.
it's separate.
So if you accomplished the 120 to 130 miles in 24 hours or less, or it goes up to 24 hours.
24 hours. It goes all the way to 24 hours.
Okay.
It's less than a mile loop. It's less than a mile. I will
my
be going
goodness.
around in circles.
If you accomplish that, then you become a member of the Olympic team?
It's not Olympics, since ultra running is not an Olympic sport,
Okay.
but they have World Championship every year in different places.
Okay.
And Belarus is the member, so I would like to be part of their team.
Oh, cool. You'd
And
be
it's
one
not
of
very competitive because I would be the only woman.
the only woman, and a
Yes.
few men?
I hope there will be a couple men there.
Oh,
That would be
listen,
nice.
I have a feeling with your mental toughness that you're going to do that. Listen, thank you so much for stopping in. This has been wonderful.
Thank you very much, Will, for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.